Hi, this is Liz and welcome to my podcast, Spiritually Speaking with Liz. Today we're doing things a little bit different and I'm starting something called my Sofa Sessions. So today I'm joined by the lovely Gilly. Gilly is a nurse practitioner and I've met her through the shop and so known her for the last 6 years. What we're going to talk to you about today is peri-menopause. So for those of you that think, switch off, doesn't affect me, please listen. Even if you don't listen to us, just listen to somebody who has been through it or is going through it, because it'll give you a greater understanding of women and what we go through in our late 40s, early 50s as a general rule. Gilly was a massive help to me through my perimenopause journey. I'm going to ask her about hers first, and then we'll just get into a general chit-chat about it. So thank you for joining me.
You're welcome, Liz. You're welcome.
I think this is something that's really important for people to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would you like to dive in with your menopause journey, how you started?
Certainly, yeah. So I'm an A&E nurse by background and 14 years experience. End of November 2019. Just started with some really awful anxiety. Never been anxious before, fairly sort of, I could take things in my stride, and it just kind of hit from nowhere really, and became worse and worse and quite debilitating. It was March 2020, given the times that we were in at that point. I spoke to the GP, I'd sort of plucked up the courage to speak to them, described my symptoms, which were, really bad anxiety and palpitations, not settling when I was relaxed. I would sort of know, I'd be sitting on the sofa and I would know that I couldn't take a deep breath without these palpitations coming. So I spoke to the GP and the answer was, that we're in certain times, we're in unsettling times, everybody's anxious, your periods are regular, away you go. So I did, and it just got worse and worse. The anxiety got to the point where I couldn't even sort of go and meet friends. I would be putting the key in the car and just sitting there sort of almost kind of crippled with anxiety of just not being able to get somewhere. Going to the supermarket felt as if it was sort of climbing a big mountain really, and couldn't do it. Even the smallest of tasks just became too much. My work suffered. I got terrible sort of imposter syndrome. I just started a new job and was managing really quite well with it, but just sort of, I can't do this, I don't know what to do, I can't make decisions, everything just became too much. Each shift I was just sort of trying to get through the shift. I would be in tears in the morning, shout at my colleagues in the afternoon, feeling incredibly helpless, and it was scary. It was really, really scary. A lot of sort of points during the journey, I felt as if I was going mad. Like crazy mad, and it's really difficult to sort of to differentiate between what is sort of normal stress levels through being at work and it's difficult times and I'm struggling, and what is kind of, this isn't right, this is and it was really, really hard to do that. And eventually I plucked the courage up to speak to the GP again, but I think it was a good number of months after that first initial conversation, and fortunately I got sort of a different GP. We chatted through things, the anxiety, palpitations, the brain fog, the feeling of sort of being an imposter, not being able to I didn't feel Gilly-like at all. I felt I sort of described it to somebody how I would be almost watching myself from kind of above, and I knew I was there and I knew I was sort of talking, but this conversation with you today, it was as if I was watching it, so as if I was kind of watching from above and not really being present, and I got that a lot.
I get that, yeah, it's like a detachment, isn't it?
Massive detachment, just sort of, just like witnessing your life, and I didn't feel present, I didn't feel calm, all these things. So I had a good conversation with the GP and started HRT the beginning of last year, so 2021. It's taken a good year, I think, of sort of changing doses, getting things quite right, and a lot of self-development work from myself, and kind of putting in a lot of work to get to the point that I am today. But sort of my kind of message, and like the one thing that I would want to get out of today is just to anybody watching it who's feeling any symptoms at all that I'm describing, that you're not alone and that you're not going mad.
That's the thing, and that's where you were massive for me, because I started my journey in February 2020 on an aircraft on the way to India, and I was starting with hot flushes. So I was literally every 20 minutes, cardigan on, off, on, off. I was driving Kev crazy. It's like, for God's sake, will you sit still?
And you'd not experienced that before?
No,
and it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was out of nowhere. Periods were regular.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it until that point, and I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? This is just. And I thought, is it stress? Because we've just come out of Christmas. We're in retail, it's very busy.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot of time. When we got to our guys in India, then I just said to Chandra, take me to your Ayurvedic guy, please. And he took me straight there, and he prescribed me something called Shatavari. I'll put this in the show notes. And it's an Ayurvedic herb, and in 3 or 4 days, that was me sorted.
Really?
And I was like, woohoo, I've got this. I honestly thought, I've got this sorted.
Yeah,
I've got this. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely fine until December last year. So I just thought it was Christmas in the shop. It's really busy. I felt like I was dragging my body through the day. I was just so tired. I was forgetting things. Brain fog was starting to creep in.
I'm only laughing because as women, why do we always put... We try to think of ways of what's this that's causing it. And we don't really think about the obvious thing, do we? That it's peri-menopause, it's menopause related.
But you know what? I'll be really honest, I had a big issue with the word menopause.
Really?
I've no issue with age, like turning 50. I'm 52 now, but turning 50, I was like, oh my God, I'm 50. I don't feel like 50, but I am 50. Woohoo, here we go. But the word menopause, it just made me think of old woman.
Shopping trolleys.
Yeah. And it was, it was that.
I've got a shopping trolley.
I know, I didn't want to say.
Yeah.
It was that feeling of being old in a different way, and like shriveled up old woman. Honestly, so that was my issue. So after Christmas, we had a break from the shop. We closed for a few days, as we do in between, and I still wasn't really feeling any better. And then the hot sweat started with a vengeance. I was having like 8 or 9 at night, never in the day. So basically I was falling asleep, waking up, hot flush. So I literally wasn't getting a full night's sleep.
And they just come from nowhere. I'm only asking this because I never had any hot flushes.
Really?
No, that wasn't one of my symptoms. And that, I think that's really important that to kind of mention that everybody has such different symptoms, and everybody has a different story.
Yeah, they do.
So I never had any, maybe 1 or 2 hot flushes, but very, very, very short-lived and not really sort of particularly memorable. That wasn't that overriding thing that I had ever.
It's funny, isn't it? And
yeah,
then,
really funny. Yeah.
And then you see, and this was my other thing about menopause, is that you see the women of our age now, but we didn't know it, that you'd be talking to them and you'd see them just this heat come up them and them starting to perspire on the face and like beading and constantly, oh, I'm hot all the time. And I think that was maybe a fear of as well of being like that. And I've got a gorgeous friend when we lived in Spain, and she went through what I did at night during the day.
Right.
For age, she still does now. I'm keep saying to her, please go to the doctors. Please go get HRT, because it is a game changer. And this is for somebody who didn't want to go on it. I really did not want to go on it.
I remember.
Well, you were one of the ones instrumental in it, because like you, I had the anxiety. And because I've done a lot of work on myself spiritually, I've done a lot of meditation over the years, I knew it wasn't mine, if that makes sense.
It does.
Because there wasn't an emotion attached to it. I would just be sat here watching TV or something, and then there'd be this racing starting,
totally get that.
and you'd feel yourself ramp up, and then I'd have to be stop, no, breathe, this isn't yours. Step back from it, this isn't yours. And one of my favourite quotes, and I do it with the fingers, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And I used to sit, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. And then I'd calm down, and
it's quite hard though, isn't it?
It's really hard.
In the moment, sort of.
I could pull myself back a lot. And one of my other ones is I would stop, breathe, and say, right, look around the room. What can you see?
Yeah.
Sofa, cushion, TV. And that
just
would
bring yourself back into the moment.
Yeah, but like you, I felt like I was out of my body for most of the time, and I couldn't. Meditation. I still turned up every morning and I sat, but my head was all over the place.
And it sounds like you were probably better sort of with your tools that you had than I was at the time, though.
They help. Yeah, they did help dramatically, but they don't give you estrogen, do they? And that's the
No, they don't.
That's the. And I can remember having this conversation with you, saying the only way you can get estrogen into your body is physically by having an estrogen supplement. And I was really against it with all my background and everything being in natural therapies. So I went to the doctor. Mainly it was advice from Gilly, I have to say, because I wanted to go down the natural HRT route, which is the bioidentical.
Yeah.
So I went, and she said, she's lovely, my doctor, but she said, well, what do you want to take? Sounds like you're going through the menopause. What would you like me to prescribe? And I was like,
I don't know.
I honestly didn't know, but I said what we'd spoken about, and so she agreed on the Utrogestan 200 milligrams and the Sandrina gel starting at 0.5 milligram. That's the estrogen's the Sandrina, Utrogestan's the progesterone. You have to have both together if you've still got a womb, because the estrogen causes the thickening of the womb. Is that right?
Oh, the progesterone is the bit that causes the shedding.
Yeah,
the
that's
shedding
right.
of the womb.
That's right.
I think, yeah.
I always get it confused.
Yes. It was so confusing, isn't it?
Very.
And I think this is something else, is that when I kind of went to the GP and asked about HRT, is that I didn't really know what I was asking for. All of a sudden, you're going from being in the prime of your life, 40. I love my 40s,
Same.
feeling amazing. This hits, and all of a sudden, like Liz, like you're saying, Liz, is you're suddenly faced with shopping trolleys, feeling incredibly old, and discussing the menopause.
I know.
I remember being at work, and I was actually only talking about this the other day. When I first started in A&E, there was a group of ladies who, so this would have been in 2006, so I would have been in my early 30s. And I remember there was a group of ladies that I worked with, and we would walk into the staff room, and there would be, one of them would be like this, and one of them would be wiping the sweat off her face, and the other one would be talking about other symptoms. And I would just look at them and think, ugh, they're so old.
Same.
Like, I don't ever want to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. Well, now there's a group of us in A&E who are exactly, we are exactly that. And we talk about the menopause, but none of us talked about it until it sort of hit us. There's girls in A&E now, and it's important as well, I think, to mention that it's not just women that need to know about this, it's men as well.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs to talk about it. So they're sort of looking at us with our hot flushes and talking about patches and gels and GP trips and anxiety and etc. And probably looking at us thinking, oh, they're so old. And it's quite scary how quick it passes.
Very scary. But
really?
Do you know, I think though now, particularly, and hats off Davina McCall.
Absolutely.
For
100%.
really bringing menopause into the spotlight.
Yes.
Taking it on TV, being incredibly vulnerable like she was, and getting it out there and making people think, actually,
it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, but I was one of those. My main reason for being anti-HRT was that back in the 90s,
I think so, yes.
That there was that big media sweep about how bad it was for you and how it caused breast cancer.
Yeah.
So I made a vow to myself at that point, I will never go on that. I won't have that risk.
Which seems is reasonable, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, well, if you took, I mean, who believes what the media says now? But, you know, back then, vulnerable or whatever, and you think, oh, wow, well, it must be true because there's been studies on it. But they just took a tiny part of it that, yes, it can give you a slight increase of breast cancer, but it also does so many more things that with my memory, which is still not great, I have to say, I can't remember, but early onset dementia is good for, osteoporosis. Can you think of any others?
Not off the top of my head, no.
There's several, aren't there? There's several benefits. So I think it's so important that...
Plus all the other symptoms that it helps with as well. I think I would rather take that small risk and live sort of a happy life than living with this. I couldn't have lived anymore with the symptoms. And in fact, actually, at one point, I did genuinely feel suicidal. And I think a lot of women of the sort of age range that we're talking about suffer with this. And then again, that's something that we don't sort of talk about. And it's scary, really, really scary to feel like that and to feel completely sort of alone. This was the beginning of this year when sort of everything came to a head for me, and sort of trying to sort out HRT, get the levels right. A few other things had happened, and just found myself feeling that actually, do you know what? I don't think I want to go on anymore. I think life would be just easier if I just stopped it now.
Yeah, I get that.
And I look back and think, gosh, it's really scary to think that that's how I felt, but that is how I felt. You know, days in bed, crying, not wanting to get out of bed, just feeling awful. It's scary, really, really scary.
It's a horrible... I didn't have the suicidal feelings, but I did have the what's the point.
Yeah. And
I absolutely adore my shop. And I was finding more and more that I was saying to Kev, will you do the shop today?
I remember sort of, you almost lost a bit of sparkle, I think.
I
did.
Bit
of sort of enthusiasm.
I did. I lost
me. That's quite
me.
hard to see as well.
I lost me, and I moved myself into the spare bedroom because I was waking Kev up with the hot flushes, and I just became insular. I didn't, the days I did in the shop, I talked to people and chatted with people, but I didn't engage in the same way, and we had the chat, and you didn't say to me you've lost your spark, but you did sort of say to me about, why not look at HRT? And this is then when I went to the doctors in March.
Yeah.
I started on the HRT at the end of March, and by, I think it was, the doctor said to me it will take 3 months. And I was like...
I think that's what they sort of like you to try it, don't they?
And I was like, I can't go like... I literally thought I cannot do this for another 3 months. It won't for me. But I have to say it did. I improved. My symptoms improved, but they were slow. I thought that I'd be taking it for 2 weeks and like, bam,
magic.
It would be no hot flushes. But they did start, and I can remember I wrote a date down because it was such... the end of May was my first night's sleep with no hot flushes.
Wow.
And it was, I can remember...
So that's like a real pivotal moment for you to have to have sort of written that down. And
it was.
So that's a game changer, isn't it?
It was a game changer.
An absolute game changer.
And I think it was middle of April, maybe. I felt like I was climbing back into me, becoming me again.
Totally get that.
And I can remember Gilly was so sweet. She used to come in and, just stick your head round, didn't you? And how are you doing today? Are you okay? Give me a little pep talk, and then off she'd go. And then I can remember you coming in and really looking at me and saying, oh, you've got your spark back. I can see the light back in your eyes now. And that was a pivotal moment as well, because that made me feel quite emotional that somebody else could see that I'd lost my spark. I mean, it must have been very obvious to people. I looked shocking all the time because I looked like Uncle Fester. Shares in concealer went up because I was using gallons of it.
But, I'm sure that's not true.
But I felt I was just so tired.
Do you feel you feel almost a bit invisible?
Yeah.
I feel I felt like I'd shrunk.
Yeah, I get that.
And I felt like I think I described this to my manager at work, that life felt black and white.
Yeah,
and that's like the colour had been sucked out of it. And that isn't me at all. I kind of I live a life sort of full of technicolor, really, and with what I wear and how I am and sort of what I'm surrounded with. And I just felt like I would just faded into grey, like a bit of a black and white movie.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, actually.
And it was a bit and I think it's just sort of, you get to a point where you don't really see things improving. So when you kind of start the HRT, or kind of whatever method you go down, you almost want it to be magic, don't you? And I remember putting my very first patch on, thinking, I think it was also almost a bit psychosomatic. I was like, I think I feel better. It's like, it's only been on 5 minutes, but I'm sure I feel better. And initially I did feel better. There were sort of issues with the progesterone part of it that had to be tweaked out. And actually opted to have the coil put in, because the progesterone part of the HRT did not suit me at all. It really upset things. And I sort of did a bit of reading, went back to the GP, opted for the coil, changed the dose of HRT, and things seem to be, things are 100% better than they were. A lot better. I feel like I've got my spark back, for sure. I feel more vibrant. I feel more me.
You have got your vibrance is a good word.
I can make a decision. Yeah. I remember one of the things I really remember, and sort of really, it's one of those things that's felt at the time. I really stopped putting things in my diary. I would kind of almost keep my diary empty, because I didn't know how I was going to feel. So a good friend would say, do you want to go for brunch next Wednesday? And inside I'd be thinking, I don't know. I don't think I can even think that far ahead. I can't say yes or no. And I would almost be saying no to an awful lot of things that gave me joy and made me happy, because I simply didn't know how I'd feel. I might feel okay on the Monday morning, but by Wednesday the palpitations would be absolutely at the worst. I'd be full, and I just couldn't, and a lot of sort of brain chatter. So I actually said no to an incredible amount of things. So now it feels like a real sort of moving forward, in that I can put things in my diary. I say yes to things, say no to things as well, but I say yes to things that I really want to do, and I know that I'm going to feel okay about it.
That takes me back to when we first met, and us talking about this, and I can remember saying to you, say yes to life. Whatever, can remember that conversation, whatever comes up, say yes to it. Even to the point we were going to do a quote in the window that was... I remember. Yeah, I remember. Okay. There you go, that's a menopause for you. I use it as an excuse. I'm going to hold my hand up for that. So I do sometimes.
I used it as I wore the perimenopausal coat for about 2.5 years. I'm not going to fib. There were things that I got out of that I really didn't want to do, because I'm perimenopause, but I can't possibly do that. And it's only sort of probably in the last 6 months that I've almost shed that coat and gone. I don't even really kind of blame the perimenopause for sort of how I'm feeling anymore. I just accept that some days are good, some days are bad. I would say it's probably more than 80-20 actually. Probably 90-10.
That's good.
Feeling good, and then there's always going to be those days, but just life does hit you, doesn't it? And
everybody. I think now for me, my bad days are. It's more the brain fog for me, and my memory. I must admit, my memory's still. So yesterday, we had a problem with our van, which broke down. Kev took it to a well-known garage, and it needed a new battery, he said. And I said to Kev, we've got a life battery guarantee with them. Oh, no, the guy says we haven't. And I was like, we have. Get him to look on his computer, type in the registration. And we had. I was like, that's a win.
It's not all together then.
I remembered something. But yeah, I am forgetting a lot of things. Did you procrastinate?
Oh, absolutely. Massively. Like making decisions. I lost that sort of listening to myself, that ability to listen to myself. I didn't trust myself anymore.
No, I didn't.
I would have to go to to friends, and massively. I'll be like, is this a good idea? Should I do this? I don't know. Maybe it'll be, and that again, I just didn't do things because it felt too much to to make that decision and to make the wrong decision. So I didn't do it.
No, it's the same. And with the shop, because we've got our own tailors in India and we've not been able to go because of circumstances in the world. So we've been having to pick fabrics. He just sends loads of photos of fabrics, videos of fabrics.
I'm not laughing at you like, or any of these times.
Well, you can imagine.
It resonates so much.
So Kev and the tailor are bombarding me with all these pictures on my WhatsApp. You can hear ping, 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 ping.
Like, no!
And he'd be saying, right, from that batch, pick however many from that batch. And I was like,
it's too much, isn't it?
I can't do it. And he'd be saying, what can't you do? It's just fabrics. Say what you like and what you don't. But I just couldn't.
At which point you want to bark, saying,
"Yeah,
you're not going through the peri-menopause."
Well, I did bark, yeah.
I've barked at colleagues at work, and just snapped like that, and kind of just gone, because you can't help it.
It's a tough. I've not lost it with Pete. I have with Kev. He's had it a lot.
Fortunately, I live alone, so
well, it's a good thing in these
nobody's had
terms.
to suffer but me.
But indeed, like in the shop, I've noticed that I was a lot more withdrawn. Or I would be irritated quicker.
Yeah.
And I'd have to bite my tongue, because I am direct anyway. And and I'm sure I was snippy. I was snippy at times. And for anybody watching that was there, I'm so sorry. But it is that...
I'll apologise to any of my work colleagues for the last 2.5 years. I was so snippy. And people that are just... lovely. I would be irritated by them for breathing in my. I know, how dare they?
No. They're not. There was a video. There's on Instagram. If you don't follow it, it's called Menopause Matters, and they put some fabulous things. I think it's
Louise Newson.
I'm not sure if it's linked to her. It's a magazine. I think
okay.
It's the magazine. Yeah. But they put up, I can't remember the name. There's always these clips from this lady, and the videos are hilarious. Really hilarious. And I've lost my train of thread now,
We've kind of almost got to laugh about it though, haven't we? Because laugh, cry, get angry. It's all of the things. You've always, just to talk about it is, you've just got to sort of almost like smile about it.
It's back. We're back in the room. So the thing that it was the husband of one of these ladies who's been doing a lot of menopause posts. And he'd put something like, he'd set up a group and he'd put, guys, don't breathe too loudly, don't do this, and for God's sake, don't eat crisps in front of them all.
That's probably what somebody did at work, actually, is eat crisps too loudly.
I know, but
noise really bothered me.
Yeah, me too.
I always, to be honest, even before all this, I'm not a great fan of being in sort of the staff room at work where there's loads and loads of noise. But it became heightened. Even just, I had to have in fact, I took my headphones into work to sort of listen to something calming to try and get through the day, because the noise of the staff room was just too much.
Yeah, no, I can get that.
And then you kind of feel bad because you're having to move, and you feel guilty, and just all those things. And again, I'm going crazy, I'm going mad, but you're not going mad. It's just all part of it.
It is, and it does make you question yourself an awful lot.
I remember watching the Davina McCall Channel 4 documentary, and at the time I wasn't sort of very vocal about talking about my symptoms and the peri-menopause, and a lot of my friends hadn't started going through it, so that was quite difficult. And that you were the only one. And I remember watching it, and within 2 minutes of the programme I was in tears, because the woman said, I thought I was going mad, I thought I was the only one. I thought, it's not just me. And I kind of watched it, and I was actually talking to my best friend the other day, and she said to me, I found it really, really difficult, Gilly, because I didn't know what you were going through, and you were telling me what you were going through, but when you're not going through it, it's incredibly hard to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But she did, and I think, again, a sort of an important thing about sharing is that she came to me and said, do you mind me sharing your story? And of course said no, share away, I don't care. All the, the awful details, share it. And she shared it with a girl at work who was going through the same that I'd gone through, and felt like she was going mad. So Mandy sort of relayed the information from me. And she says to me, in fact, she said to me the other day, she said, you changed, or your story changed the course of that lady's life, because she realised that she wasn't the only one.
That's the big thing, and that's what you did for me.
Which I didn't think I'd done anything. I guess other than sort of sharing, and then you think, oh, I'm oversharing, but actually, I'm not sure you can overshare.
It's not. I mean, I knew with like the Davina program that women are going through it and going through it all the time, but when it starts happening to you, obviously it becomes personal because it's happening to you, and because you've been like a few steps ahead of me with it, then you're sharing with me, oh, well, I felt like that. I did this. Why don't you try this? And luckily for me, the things that you were saying is what worked for me. And
it's not, and I think it's important to say that not everything, like one size doesn't fit all, does it, with the treatment, and what works for one doesn't work with the other. And I think I was quite, I suppose you sort of share things, and with that caveat of, well, this worked for me. Yeah. I guess I feel so well now, you want to share, don't you? You want to say, try this, or have a go at this, because this might help. You just you basically don't want anybody to feel as grotty as you felt. Or as low, or as suicidal, or as anxious as you did. So you just want to share everything. Yeah, and the one thing I did struggle with the HRT was the progesterone. Yeah, me too. You had the suicidal. I had the first time I took it. Tearful, suicidal. It was as if it was like PMT. Yeah. Times a million. I always want to over exaggerate.
No, it did. So first time I took it, I was a bit ratty, but it was okay. They told me I'd sleep really well, and I didn't. Because I was really looking forward to deep sleep. It was supposed to be like the calming part of it. It did the complete opposite. Although I was talking to a friend the other day, and she's just started HRT, again with somebody at work, and we'd had a chat about it. I feel like I need shares in HRT. And she struggled again. I said to her, how's it going? How's the HRT going? And she said, the 2 weeks on the progesterone, she was feeling really, really grotty. Tearful, well, just all the things we've just said. And she said, I don't think I can do that kind of going forward. So again, she needs to sort of look at that, because 2 weeks out of 4 weeks, that's a long time to feel that grotty. Was the conversation we had. So I took the progesterone for 4 months. So the first one really ratty, second one I think was a bit better, third one breast tenderness beyond belief. I was sleeping in a bra. I was just it was so uncomfortable, really painful. And then the fourth one, I just wanted to kill somebody. I just wanted. I don't get road rage, but I was. Road rage. I got terrible road rage. Yeah. The language that came out of my mouth on the way to work was I was So that's and it was personal, wasn't it? It was all that person has set off this morning saying, I'm going to really annoy Liz from Karma this morning in my car. That's what it feels like, though. It feels like it's really personal. It does. But I spoke to my doctor, and she said to take the Utrogestan tablets, to take them internally. Right, okay. Rather than orally. Yeah. Take them vaginally. I've heard other people say that as well. And it didn't really make a difference, to be honest. And I found it horrible doing it. I read a lot about sort of that some people can be almost, I think, like allergic to the progesterone part of it. And I did a lot of reading on, if anybody's not heard of Louise Newson. Yeah. Newson? Yeah. Her website is incredible. I got a lot of information. Because again, when all this started, I had no idea where to get my information from. No. Because there's so many. There's hundreds of forums. And the thing is, it's not, and we all need to talk about it. But for me, going on the forums, it was just, well, I had this, well, I had this, well, I had that. Well, there didn't seem to be overwhelming, and there didn't seem to be any solutions coming up. Just I feel like this. You want something, don't you? It's like if you had stomachache, it would probably be quite easily sorted, or a headache, and it just feels like I just need this sorting. I need something, and again, one size doesn't fit all. So that's like working out what is best for you. Yeah, and it can be very, very. At a time when things are overwhelming, that reading the literature, reading the books, reading the websites, it's just so overwhelming. You see, for me, I couldn't take it in. I was reading. Well, no, I don't think I took it in, to be honest, either. Well, you did, because you helped me with it. But I was reading it, and like with anything, and the words are just like dancing about.
You'd read a page, wouldn't you? And then I'd go to the next page and think, I don't know what I've just
that?
read.
No, I know.
I have no idea what I've just read.
Can you remember Charlie Brown's teacher?
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah. That's what the words were to me. That's what
I
it was
found
just
it
like.
really helped to write things down, especially before I spoke to the GP, to have a big list.
Yeah, same.
Because depending on it, hopefully, you know, if you're making that call, I think it's useful to ask who the menopause specialist is at your GP surgery.
Yeah, for sure.
And every GP surgery should have one. And writing down things, and so that you're not forgetting what your symptoms are.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
at the end of the day, one of the symptoms of peri-menopause is brain fog, isn't it? So if you sit there going, actually I don't know, and it's difficult to sort of get railroaded into something else.
Yeah.
You know, nice guidelines are that sort of for perimenopausal symptoms, HRT is the way to go. Not antidepressants.
No.
You know, and I remember...
Although they can help in some situations,
can't they? They can help in some situations, but often... Like, I remember being... I think I was offered them right at the beginning, and I'm thinking, I'm not depressed. I don't feel depressed. And yeah, absolutely, I agree that they have their place, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm not sure that they should be... They're not first-line treatment for perimenopause.
You'll
it's
have
a
that...
imbalance.
Exactly. You'll have those days, won't you, where... Yeah, you feel brain fog, but you don't have that gripping anxiety, that gripping fear, and then another day it'll be there.
It's
where
so interchangeable. So, like, you know, a Monday could be vastly different to a Wednesday to a Friday.
Yeah.
I think I sort of realised, it's only looking back, isn't it, that you realise how bad you felt.
Yeah, definitely.
And I sort of take a glimpse back, just to look at how awful it was, just to remind myself how far I've come, because I feel consistently well now. And I've had several months, actually, probably 3 or 4 months of just feeling really well. I've got my zest for life back. I can make decisions. I'm thinking about the future. And I got sort of really stuck in a rut.
Yeah,
just feeling dreadful.
I think it's easy to get stuck in the rut.
Hugely. Especially at our age, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not there 100% with sleep, yeah. I'm still a little bit...
I'm not really allowed to talk about sleep. My friends ban me because I sleep like 7 or 8 hours every night, and don't look at me like that. I have done for my entire life, and it's kind of...
I used to, but yeah, no, now. Last night...
It's not gone with the perimenopause. That hasn't been affected.
That's good. No, that is good.
I think I had a couple of days last year where I didn't sleep and thought... That's it, I've got insomnia now as well, but then...
That was the killer for me.
There's kind of brain going, but then it's settled after 2 nights, so...
That was the absolute killer for me, and I was prescribed melatonin.
Oh, right.
Oh, I didn't like that.
Oh, okay. Didn't work?
I just felt terrible the next day. I felt groggy, and I would take it at like 9:30, go to bed like 10ish, and then I would be waking up every morning. It was 3 or 3:30, and I was just wide awake. And I thought, well, actually, I'm
with
doing
kind of
that.
Thoughts around the head, or just awake?
No, just awake and just lying there like
eyes wide open, not enough sleep.
What shall I do? Let's try and go back to sleep. No, I can't go back to sleep. Can I read? No, because my eyes are too tired and I can't take it in.
You are too tired to do it, yeah.
Yeah, so I just literally just laid there and stared at the ceiling and waited for dawn, really. Whoever she is. Waited for sunlight. And yeah, but the...
And lack of sleep just...
it
just makes everything else worse, I hear.
Yeah, no, it does.
I don't tend to have it, but...
I didn't.
Yeah.
The only times I've suffered with sleep is jet lag. And that's so like going to America, horrific jet lag for me. I don't know why. And it takes me days to get over it.
Yeah.
But this was like it for months.
And it just impacts so much, doesn't it, on everything else. So you're struggling with everything, and then you can't sleep either.
Well, you've got the brain fog of tiredness and not sleeping on top of the hormonal. And I think that's why
it's just too much, isn't it?
Yeah, and I couldn't make, like, I'd need to order something for the shop, and I'd be saying to Kev, incense, I could order it standing on my head, and I knew what I'd have in, and I've always got a good idea of what stocks I've got. I couldn't remember, and I'd say, shall we do this or shall we do it? And he said, why are you asking me for? That's your side of things. I go, I know, but I just, it was like this overwhelm of
yeah.
I can't order incense.
I couldn't analyse an X-ray at work. I would look at it and think,
That's
is it
pretty.
Is it a foot? Is it a hat? Is it a hand? I genuinely don't know. And then I cry. I'd be like, I don't know what it is. And I look at X-rays every day of my life for my work, and just couldn't. And you sort of look back and think, oh, you're laughing and smiling about it, but actually at the time,
It's awful.
It's really, really grim.
It is grim, and I think now we're past that.
Oh, fingers crossed, because I still
yeah.
don't take it for granted. I don't know about you, but
no, I'm grateful every day.
I don't feel that I ever take this for granted. And my HRT patch is the only medication throughout my entire life that I have been consistent with. I'm like, is it there? Yes, it's there. And, every Tuesday, every Saturday, I change it religiously, and nothing else ever have I ever been that religious with, because I'm so scared of going back to where I was before I started it. Petrified.
No, I get that. And
I hear that a lot.
I was really scared with all the shortages.
Absolutely.
Because of the world situation and things are going to be, and the demand of it, because people, women were actually saying, I need this.
Yeah.
So they were being prescribed it. But I can remember we had this discussion because one of your friends was struggling.
Somebody at work couldn't find it, and she'd gone into every pharmacy and was like, I'm not, I need this. I need this. Yeah. And you feel bad for the pharmacists, but they're looking at you like, yeah, I know. But you're like, no, you don't understand. I need this. I have to have it. And I think there was one occasion where they didn't have it, but I put it in quite early because I knew there was a shortage. And I was chatting to another friend. She was like, I'm having to snip my patches to kind of put them on. And we were almost like, I was thinking, well, I've got some extra ones in the cupboard. Maybe I could sell her some some 50s for my this. And it was really scary because you know what difference it makes, so you don't want to be without it.
Like, I remember going to the pharmacy and they're saying, we haven't got any. I'd still got a few left at this point. I was a couple of weeks ahead of myself because you'd taken my prescription early. And I don't know when we'll be getting any. And it was the panic. And I was like...
overwhelming.
And I was like, but I need this. And you could ring your GP now and ask her to change you over to whatever other one. But I have to warn you.
Scary,
but I have to warn you. It's a slightly different recipe, whatever the word you use, and so it might be different. And I was so scared that it would be a back step for me, and I was like, oh, I can't do this. And I was just okay. Can we cancel the prescription? And she said, well, yes, I suppose it's not what we normally do. So I rang the doctor and I said, can you issue me another prescription if I find the HRT somewhere else? So they said yes. So I rang round our local pharmacies, and luckily one of them had 2 boxes. So I put my name on it. But the desperation, it would be like, for those of you that don't know, I can only equate it to being the last food. That was a ration of food, and then once that had gone, you would have no more food. That is the urgency for me it's
just that fear, that overwhelming fear of not, you feel like you've gone forward and you're moving, you've got that momentum of moving forward, and I can't go back to that because it's just too scary to even consider going back. Just awful.
It is awful.
I don't ever want to go back to how I felt 18 months ago, and I think by talking about it, how we are today, I don't want other people to have to go through the things that you've gone through and the things that I've gone through unnecessarily.
Yeah,
a lot of women will go through it, but just by, even if somebody listens to this and goes, oh, maybe I am perimenopausal, it takes guts to ring the GP, and it takes guts to kind of go, maybe this is what it is. But for such a long time, I tried to put it on lots of other things and not the perimenopause until I went, oh, it probably is. Symptoms can start late 30s, early 40s, and they can be quite sneaky and quite subtle.
Yes, they can. Until
they suddenly hit you in the face and you think, oh, I'm definitely not feeling right.
I think women are stuck in that your periods stop or become very irregular, and hot flushes. They're like the only
And you buy a shopping
symptoms.
trolley.
Yeah, they're the only symptoms that seem to get. Now it's different, and now more and more people are talking about
aching bones as well.
Feet,
Yeah,
my
aching
feet.
bones. Like, I remember talking to a friend who she'd never had HRT, and she went, "Do you think my aching bones throughout like the last 10 years have been part of it?" Maybe, yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, and so many different symptoms. I mean, if you look on the internet,
There's
are
a
so
lot.
many
There's
symptoms, and it might be that you only have one or two of them, but they are really debilitating. Or you might have a whole catalogue of them, or you might sail through it.
And
and I hope you do sail through it. I hope people do sail through it.
My mum did. She sailed through it.
That's a whole nother podcast about.
I remember.
Mine, yeah.
I remember having a few hot flushes. I was convinced that she'd gone on HRT, but she said she didn't. And she sailed through it. So she's saying to me and my sister, well, what's the matter? What are you talking about?
It's a little bit like me saying about my sleep, though, isn't it? Like, if people sail through it, I'm like, oh, that's very nice for you.
Yeah.
No, I am pleased, because I would want people to sail through it. But if you're not sailing through it, you need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, you do.
Definitely.
And I think on that note, we can wrap up. So if you are struggling, or you know somebody who is struggling, please go see your GP, or speak to a nurse practitioner, or just go on...
Or just talk to friends.
Yeah, talk to somebody who you know has been through it, and just remember that you're not alone. You're really not alone. We're all going through it or have gone through it, and you've got that support with women, because we unite in these things. So please don't go through this on your own. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. This will be on YouTube as well, and the podcast details below. If you want to contact me, it's the usual details in the show notes. But until next time, thank you for joining us, and goodbye.